One of the best ships at the Battle of Endor wasn't even in Return of the Jedi at all. Don't ask me how that works. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and this is the DP20 Frigate. Design. The Corellian Engineering Corporation DP20 Frigate, also known as the DP20 gunship, was a small but incredibly powerful combat vessel popular with nearly every faction in the galaxy in its time. The exact details of its structure and appearance differ between depictions, but the average DP20 featured a conical head section and a long cylindrical hull, sometimes with CR-90 style side flares along the sides. At the rear of the ship was its large drive block containing its oversized reactor and 3 engines. The ship was bristling with weapons that allowed it to attack ships of any size. It was typically used for starfighter screening, but was more than capable of taking on larger capital ships as well. I don't believe we have ever seen the inside of a DP20, but it has been described as fairly cramped, with its engines and their associated equipment taking up almost half of its volume, and its weapons, shield generators, and other machinery taking up much of the rest. It had no passenger cabins, and its crew quarters were likely very Spartan. A very simple deck plan of the ship included in the ISIS coordinates, a Star Wars RPG adventure from 1990 certainly suggests as much, with very little in the way of creature comforts found amongst its 5 decks. Deck 1, the top deck, had the ship's computer control room, 4 types of supplies and equipment storage, an armory, a repair shop, and access crawlways for engine maintenance. Deck 2 held its bridge, officers' quarters, officers' lounge and galley, crew quarters, crew lounge and galley, and its engineering room and power core. Deck 3 had various systems control rooms, such as life support, weapons, hyperdrive, and more, as well as an emergency repair facility, sick bay, science and medical labs, and more access to engineering and the reactor. Deck 4 held the ship's forward cargo hold, security hold and bridge, escape pod access, a speeder and skiff hangar and repair shop, more equipment storage, general maintenance space, droid storage and maintenance, auxiliary systems access, and more engineering and reactor access. The bottom deck, Deck 5, had more space for the forward hold, the speeder skiff launch bay, a belly cargo hold, more minor storage, more engineering and reactor access, and access to the ventral engine crawlways. The ship also had partial dorsal and ventral gunnery decks, which only held its various turrets and sensors, as well as its landing gear wells in the case of the ventral gunnery deck. The DP20's in-universe designers are unknown, but in real life it was based on unused concept art for the Millennium Falcon and Tantive 4 created by Joe Johnston. Each of the ship's appearances are slightly different from the last, so it could be argued that it had many designers over the years, but either way, the lion's share of the credit belongs to Johnston. However, astute Wikipedia viewers will notice that the main image on the canon page for the DP20 is very different from any of its Legends appearances, and unfortunately that is because it is a fan reimagining of the ship that was copied for the 2017 reference book, The Rebel Files. That design was created by game modder EvilleJedi, and dates back to at least 2005, when it was used in a mod for Homeworld 2. It has also appeared in a couple of mods for Star Wars Empire at War, but the Rebel Files appears to use the Homeworld mod version. I don't have that game to look on it with my own eyes, but I was able to find and import the Empire at War version into Blender to view it from the same angle as the Rebel Files illustration, and despite the very different Imperial texture on that version, you can clearly tell that the mesh is the same. I don't know if the Rebel Files illustrators traced the Homeworld DP20 or just straight up cut it out of a screenshot of the game, but that's where they got it from either way. I also don't know how they managed to find such an obscure model of it, but perhaps one of them had played that mod before. I also don't know why they didn't just trace one of the many official DP20s like they did several times in the comics. I suppose maybe none of those were high enough quality, the right art style, or pictured at the right angle or something to use in the book. Who knows? Specifications. The DP20 measured 120 meters long. Its width and height are impossible to say for sure, since pretty much every illustration of it had different proportions, but it tends to be around 50 meters wide and 30 meters tall. It had a Class 2 hyperdrive and a top atmospheric speed of 1,000 kilometers per hour. The ship was very well armed for its size, with 8 double turbolaser cannons, 6 quad laser cannons, and 4 concussion missile tubes with a capacity of 30 missiles each. The ship required 91 crew, of which 46 were said to be gunners. That seems like kind of a lot, but it would break down to 4 personnel per turbolaser, 2 per missile launcher, and 1 per quad laser turret, which I guess seems reasonable. The ship could also be operated by as few as 10 if necessary. It had no passenger capacity, but could carry 300 tons of cargo and 8 months of consumables. A DP20 could be purchased for 4.8 million credits new or 2.4 million used in Legends. In canon, its new price was just 3.2 million, but its aftermarket price was unknown. History. The DP20 frigate was created sometime during or slightly before the Clone Wars, where they were used primarily as anti-starfighter vessels by the Republic Navy. The Empire inherited the Republic's DP20s after the war, and continued to use them throughout the Imperial era. The Imperial Navy relegated many of these ships to unglamorous patrol duties around backwater Outer Rim worlds, but sent most of them to be scrapped. However, like several other types of Imperial starships, this just led to many of them being stolen by the Rebel Alliance, various pirates, and other organizations. The ship was available for sale to the general public too, where it was also purchased by rebel groups, pirates, planetary defense forces, the Hutt cartel, and various merchant companies and wealthy travelers looking for maximum protection in space travel. DP20 frigates made up a relatively major part of the rebel fleet at least as early as 1 BBY, when a pair of them defended the rebel flagship Salvation from an attack by Boba Fett near the Aitani Nebula. 3 more were present for the assault on Kamino shortly thereafter, and several were present at Yavin during the attack on the Death Star, though they did not take part in the battle. 1 DP-20 was stationed over Hoth to protect Echo Base while it was under construction, though again, it and the rest of the Rebel fleet were nowhere to be seen in the Battle of Hoth. 4 DP-20s did fight in the Battle of Endor, though somehow they miraculously managed to stay just off-screen throughout the battle and the rest of Return of the Jedi. 1 gunship was also used to rescue the 6 surviving Bothan spies who brought news of the second Death Star to the Rebellion. In 4 ABY, 5 Rebel DP-20s joined 2 Imperial DP-20s in the combined Rebel-Imperial fleet following the Bakura Truce to defend the planet from the invading Siruvi Imperium. After the end of the Civil War, the New Republic and other groups continued to use the DP-20 for many years, including in the Battle of Mon Calamari in 10 ABY. The last known use of a DP-20 frigate was in 29 ABY, but it no doubt remained in limited service for decades afterward, especially in the hands of pirates and others who couldn't afford to upgrade. And that's everything there is to know about the DP-20 frigate. Please let me know what you think of this ship, and what other vessels you'd like to see covered in the future. Don't forget to subscribe as well so you don't miss a video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. RFC, out.